Having worked with dozens of nonprofit organizations over the years within no code, I see the same requests over and over again from our nonprofit clients. And one of the most common things that's always being requested is for a way to track donations inside of no code. So that is exactly what we're going to be breaking down in this video. We're going to be using SmartSuite and building from scratch a way to track donations. And I'm even going to share some nuggets with you in terms of automations you can build to expedite your donation collection for next year. So if that's of interest, stick around and let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Gareth. I'm the owner at Gap Consulting, and it's our mission to help you get organized and automated with no-code tools. SmartSuite is one of our favorite no-code tools, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can build from scratch inside of SmartSuite to put together a solution to track donations for your nonprofit organization. But before we get into it, I first want to invite you to join me for some free training. If you have not learned how to leverage the power of no-code automation, you are in for a treat. Grab that training at gapconsulting.io/webinar-registration. That is going to give you the opportunity to just right then and there learn from our free resource and give you access to the fundamental building blocks of automation. This will help you save countless hours every week once you start leveraging automation to do those repetitive tasks that you do day in and day out. And believe me, as I mentioned earlier, I've worked with a lot of nonprofits and I know y'all can use these tips. So go ahead and grab that training. But without further ado, let's hop on into the heart of this video. Now, go ahead and open up your own SmartSuite account and follow along with me. If you don't already have a SmartSuite set up, you can grab a free trial using our link wherever you found this video. Let's go ahead and hop on into my screen and I'll show you what I've got set up so far, and we'll talk about what we can build out from here. So first and foremost, I have a brand new solution called Nonprofit in SmartSuite, and I have three different applications. I'm looking at organizations, I'm looking at contacts, and I'm looking at donations. Now you could add another layer to this as well if you wanted to add some different events that you track. I know a lot of nonprofits will have specific events that they use for fundraising, and sometimes you might want to see the total of your donation efforts rolling up into those different events. So if you want to see totals per event and all of that, go ahead and build a fourth layer. But for us, in our simplistic example here, we're just going to stick with these three different applications. So top level here, organizations. I've got no data here. I just have that primary field, which is called title. Let's actually update this to be the organization ID. And notice that I've already set this to be manual input, and I've toggled off requiring an entry to be unique, and also I've toggled off require an entry in this field. So that way we're just able to roll out a little bit easier here, but in normal practice you might actually set this to be auto-generated, which we can get to in just a bit. Let's go ahead and update that field now that we've renamed it, and think about what an organization is. Let's say that one of the organizations that we do business with is Acme Incorporated. Well, we would want to tie the different contacts that we have from Acme and roll them up into that organization. You'll see why in a moment as we build this out further, but effectively this allows us to roll up total donations by individuals at the organization level, which might not make a ton of sense if you're hearing that for the first time, but stick with me, it will make sense before the end of this video. So I've got Acme here. This is one organization. I can add a lot more information that I'm collecting. For example, I might want to grab a link, and this could be the website URL for Acme. I could also do things like grab the main phone number, the main address, etc. SmartSuite is amazing. It has field types for all of this information. So here's an address, and you can even see that when I create this, let's go ahead and just put a fake address in here, 1000 South Park Drive. And if I then look at this, I actually get a view of Google Maps right then and there. So an amazing feature. I didn't have to integrate anything with the tool in order to get that functionality. As I mentioned, I can also bring in phone numbers, so let's go ahead and do that as well. This is all data that lives and exists at the organization level. So I'm talking about the main phone number for that organization, the main address for that organization, etc. Now here you can see I can choose my display format if I want the country flag and the phone type, just the number, or just the number and the country flag. So you'll see I have a couple different options. By default, it's the number and the country flag, in my case, America. And we also have the option of just taking the number and then also going with the number, the country flag, and the phone type. So a few different options there. We can also allow for multiple different points of entry. So we can go ahead and make those selections here. And let's go ahead and just add that field and plug in any old fake phone number. And by doing that, I'll just click right here, drop in a phone number, and click done. And the advantage here is I can actually then just click on this and it will then prompt me if I want to open up, pick an app, which would then allow me to select an application if I wanted to do that, that would actually make my phone calls. So if you're making phone calls directly from your computer, you can do that now just by syncing up SmartSuite with whatever you're using for that telephone application. And right then and there, from inside of SmartSuite, once I've got that integrated, I can just click right here. It's going to open up whatever I want, whatever I've decided, and then I can make my phone call right from inside of SmartSuite from my computer. So that's it for organizations. Let's go a layer deeper. Of course, we have one or more contacts, people that we know from each of these organizations. And that's the next layer that we need to build. So flipping into contacts, we can do something similar. Let's bring in the full name field here. And the full name field is a field type that will allow us to set some predetermined fields like the title that we want to use, if we choose to use middle names, etc. And so in this case, especially with a lot of donations, when you're receiving donations from Dr. So-and-so or PhD or whatever those fancy different titles are, you might want to make sure that you've included titles here so that you don't mess up for the people who are donating to your nonprofit. So this is one of those added benefits of using this tool. You notice by default we have Mr. and Mrs., but you can add as many choices as you'd like. So I can bring in Doctor here as I suggested, and we are good to go. I can also toggle on or off the middle name, last name, and first name. So if I were to just add this field as is, I can click here and now start typing in my first full name. This is going to be the first one. I could go Mr. and if I were in this database, I would show up like this. Now, just for the sake of completion here, I'm going to add someone else as well. Let's bring in Dr. Jane Doe. And we will create now our second contact. Now, as I mentioned earlier, very often we will want to bring in and auto-generate that primary field. Primary field is the leftmost field in one of our applications. Well, this particular field type can only be text or auto-generated, meaning I could not bring in that full name field type that I presented right here. So if we want to access the full name, we can auto-generate it. And basically that means we'll just point it at the full name once we go through these little steps right here. And I will find the full name field that we just created and I'll bring it in here. Any change now that we make to the full name right here is going to be instantly reflected in the primary field or the name of each record inside of our database. Okay, so now we've got the name, but as you might imagine, we're not going to stop there. I'm going to add some other fields as well, things like email. I might want to collect emails for the different contacts that I have. I might want to collect phone numbers again for the people in my database as well. So I get all of these different options just as I had in my organizations application. I can go through. The key takeaway here is that I'm including fields that are now relevant at the contact level. So whereas in organizations, if I flip back, this is the address of the headquarters. This is the phone number of the organization. This will be personal information, so a personal phone number. Maybe we collect addresses for contacts as well if we are sending letters to their homes, for example. So again, the data has to live at the level that makes sense inside of our solution. Now let's jump to our final level here. We have our donations. And of course, when a donation is made, it will be in an amount, which is going to be a currency field type. You can set the currency selection for your organization. You can also choose your precision. If you don't care about pennies and cents, you can just go right to the dollar. And we can go ahead and add that field. I'll rename it before we do to the amount donated. And of course, we also want to track at a minimum the date that something was donated. So let's go with a date here. And you'll notice that we can choose the display format, make it a little fancier or more compact. And once I add that field, I can go ahead and create a sample record. Let's go ahead and bring in an amount donated. Let's say a $1,000 donation was submitted, and that happened yesterday on July 10th. I would record it just like this. Now I have record of that donation, but I'm not quite done yet. All I have right now is siloed data. I have organizations, contacts, and donations, but nothing is talking. And I've got to get all those applications linked up so that we can leverage the true power of a tool like SmartSuite. So let's do that. A donation is made from a contact. So let's go ahead and link up to our contacts. I will create a linked record field here, and I will find a link to not organizations yet, but contacts. I then have to choose if I will allow a donation to come from multiple contacts or just one. For the simplicity of our example, let's say just one at a time. One person makes the donation. One person is running that credit card or writing that check. So I'm toggling off multiple records here, and I will then add my field. So what do we see? Well, we're going to see, when I click here, the ability to add a contact to this donation, suggesting that this is the person who made the donation, and this information is coming from our contacts application. So if in this case I was the one who made that $1,000 donation, it would look like this. Now that I have the contact information, I also want to bring in the title here. So let's go ahead and make this auto-generated as well. I want to incorporate a few different elements here. I want to include the person who made the donation, so I'll look for the link to contacts, but also I want to include the amount that they donated, so let's find the amount donated, as well as the date. So I'm going to look for that date here. We called it just date, and update the field. Again, this is going to auto-populate now with the information that exists in the other pieces of my application. So I have now linked my contacts to my donations. Let's also link our contacts to organizations. So I can build a linked relationship once again from the contact level, build the linked record into my organizations, and here is my selected app. I want to link a contact to an organization. Every contact inside of our database will only link to one organization. I will again toggle off multiple records, and I will add this field as well. One thing I want to point out, when we build this linked relationship, it now exists on both sides of the plane. So contacts are linked to organizations. Well, organizations are also now linked to contacts. It's not going to show up by default, but if I go into my fields to display and I scroll on down, I am going to find that I now have a link to contacts because it is not a one-way street. A link is always a two-way street. If contacts are talking to organizations, if they're linked up, organizations are also connected to contacts. So let's go ahead and bring that in here. And I can establish the link at either side. So I could say that Acme, for example, has two different contacts. Gareth and Dr. Jane Doe are both from the Acme organization. I can link to those two records here, and you'll see both of them linked right here. Again, from the other side of the equation, we know when we flip back into contacts that these folks are now going to be connected to Acme. So why is this valuable? Well, we can now roll this data up at the organization level as individuals make donations. Let me show you how. First, what I need to do is calculate the total donated. So let's go ahead and start with a formula field. I will use the nice formula syntax that SmartSuite makes available. I do have to go into the advanced editor here, and I'm going to rename this before I get started, and I'm going to call this total donated. Now what I'm going to do is just write a formula that looks at our donations on the contact level. So what I'm going to do here is look at my link to donations, and once I bring this in, I've now established that I'm looking at the linked relationship. Now a layer deeper, I hit the period on my keyboard, which allows me to look at the fields inside of my donations application. So in our example, I want to look and see what that amount donated is. So this syntax right here means I'm looking at the link to my donations application, and I want to know the amount donated that is linked here. But that's not all. I want to sum it. This is a total. So out here, I'm going to write sum with an open parenthesis, and then at the end of that expression, I'll add my closed parenthesis, and let's add that field. What this is going to do then, it's going to take the total amount donated by each person. Now let's, just to make this a little bit easier to visualize, bring in our field to display. If you recall, I said when we build a link, it exists on both sides. We linked donations to contacts, and here's the other side of the equation. Contacts is linked to donations. So let's bring that in so that we can see it. It was hiding previously, but here's that donation where earlier I said that I donated $1,000. Well, that's what this is totaling. It's taking the total amount of donations here and summing them. If I made another donation, let's suppose I came in and I said, actually, I'm going to donate another $500 today. And again, we would select the user or the contact who did that. If I flip into contacts now, we're going to see that this sum is now auto-calculated. Give SmartSuite just a minute to catch up, and we'll see it auto-calculated to 1,500. So now that we have that number, we can roll up yet another level. I can bring in this total donated to the organization level. Before we get there, let's assume that Dr. Jane made some donations as well. She donated $2,000 on, let's say, July 4th. And we will link that to Dr. Jane. When I click back into contacts, we will see that her donation total is $2,000, mine is $1,500, but the total donated for the Acme organization is $3,500. I can go into organizations now and do a similar formula. Let's do one more. Formula field, again into my advanced editor, and I'll say total, I'll rename this to be total donated for the org. And here, I'm going to look at the linked relationship to contacts. And in this case, I want to look at the total donated amount that we just calculated. So this is a formula of a formula. And again, I'm going to perform a sum here on this. This will allow me to sum from all of the contacts that are linked to every organization, and we will know what the total donated from within that organization is. Let's add that field, and we will see this is calculated, as we already knew, to 3,500. 1,500 for one person, 2,000 for another, totals to 3,500. This is the key structure you will need in order to start capturing your donations. But when you go to implement this, I want to let you know that you can take this as far down the rabbit hole as you want. There are so many different ways that you can automate this and make it a better experience for the members of your team, as well as the people who donate to your nonprofit. One thing that you might consider is bringing in this data automatically. If you're using some payment processing like Stripe or maybe PayPal, you can set up automations that say, when we receive funds, find who made that payment to us and record that information in our SmartSuite solution. So all of that data can come in automatically and properly link to your clients and your organizations, etc. Now, another thing you might do is send some messages after you receive a donation, maybe email verification or some sort of receipt, or even just a thank you letter. These are other types of automations you can build inside of SmartSuite as well that will allow you to take things to the next level and also just come off as much more polished and professional to your donators. I know we went really fast in this video, but I hope you got a ton of value from it. If you have any questions, please drop them below wherever you found this video. And in the meantime, keep on building.